this is Animat, and welcome back to the Muppet Vlog. Now this time we're going to be looking into the 8th episode of Season 4 of The Muppet Show, which features Arlo Guthrie. Now for those of you who don't know who Arlo Guthrie is, he is actually more known as a folk singer and songwriter, where many of his songs actually ended up becoming themes of certain things. Some examples would actually include Alice's Restaurant Massacre actually turned out to be a little bit of a theme for Thanksgiving in a sense. One popular song that he actually helped out was actually City of New Orleans, and his song, Massachusetts, actually became a pretty popular song in the States. Well, actually in that state in particular. But he's not only known for just his music in that sense. It's not just like folky and homey style music. He is actually more known to have a little bit of a political side, and it can really be a bit of a mix. There are some days when he can be a bit liberal, and there are some days where he can be a bit conservative. It really depends on who's the leader of the US. That really does depend on which side he's in when it comes to his political stance. But either way, he is actually also very well known to go and write songs of protest. So whatever music that you would hear that protesters and activists would sing out, chances are they would actually sing something from Arlo Guthrie. But going into the episode that he appeared in, man, it honestly feels kind of weird, if I could be very honest. And the reason why is because I think the best way to describe this episode is that it's kind of disorganized, and it really does kind of show. Now, the reason why I say this is because there's no storyline throughout this episode. The only thing that really strings it together is that it has a loose theme of a farmhouse, where everything is made to be more folky and more homey in a sense. But even at that, there really isn't much. Now, I understand that technically episodes where The Muppet Show would focus more on the variety aspect than they would in the story aspect, it has existed before. There are some episodes in which they didn't even have a storyline. But with this one in particular, what does bother me is that the theming as well, like they want to do something, but they're not really committed to it. Like they would often have sketches appear that would pretty much make no sense onto why is it in particular in this episode. And especially how, beginning with Season 4 and even a bit in Season 3 as well, like you can tell, like in many of the episodes, they would stay committed to the theme. Like they would go and, you know, really go all out with the subject that they want to talk about. Rather it be like a full-on linear story or like a specific strong theme. But in here, it feels like they want to do some kind of story, considering that, well, not a story, but a bit of a theme, considering now that they got Arlo Guthrie, they want to do a bit of like a folk-themed episode in a sense, but not everything really connects well. And most of the bits, you could pretty much just take it out and put it in whichever episode you can. So that's why it doesn't really feel like there's a bit of a connection that feels like it's a whole episode together. It just feels like a series of gags, jokes, sketches, and musical numbers just stitched together with no order, really. And honestly, like, it always comes out one after another. There is no sense of, like, there's a, like, how can I put this? Like, there's no transition in a way. It's just, like, one sketch happens right after another. It's just, like, immediately jump from, like, one to the next. And that's why it kind of feels, like, a bit disorganized. And on top of that, like, it feels a bit long as well. Like, you're unsure of where it begins, where's the middle, and what happens in the end. So you don't know if there's really this kind of order in this episode. I mean, yeah, I am repeating this, but that's really the main issue with what's going on with this episode altogether. Like, a good example that I can put in is that Kermit actually starts things out with a special guest number, where immediately he comes into the stage, says, hi-ho, everybody, and, like, immediately the curtain's up, and everybody's just singing Grocery Blues, and there's Arlo Guthrie just singing the song. And then afterwards, like, you do get other bits that just happen, like, like suddenly you got a Muppet Newsflash bit, and then suddenly it just jumps to a bunch of cows singing Elegance. And then right afterwards, like, you do get a few moments with Arlo Guthrie, whether it be, like, backstage. I remember there's this one random one where, like, he pulls out this, like, guitar that's also a flamingo, and, like, the whole bit is, like, it's a little pun that he has a flamingo guitar, and then, literally, that's it! Like, on to the next one! And then, like, afterwards, we got other bits just randomly popping in, like, at the square dance. Actually, that one, I will admit, that was kind of funny. Like, there's a little square dance bit where it kind of takes a bit of a dark turn, but it's actually kind of funny at the same time, because suddenly it just randomly turns violent. It's like, sing your partner, don't you know? Put your man in the mouth and kick your woman in the shins. That, I have to admit, that is a pretty interesting square dance right there. That's probably one of the very few aspects where they go country, and even, like, for me, someone who's not into country, like, I find that hilarious and just great. Just see, a square dance turn into a freaking brawl, you know? It's kind of like, in a way, it kind of reminds me of that, oh, what was it? There's a Bugs Bunny cartoon, I remember. I forgot what the name is that, like, Bugs isn't, like, he's trying to get away from these two hillbilly guys, and then at the end, there's, like, this big square number. It was like,
step right up, you're doing fine, I'll pull your bed, you pull mine, you get it before, break it up with a go-or.
So, anyways, the other moments that pretty much happen is that, like, we got more of Arlo's moments where he would sing, like, Get Along, Little Doggy. Then there's, like, another, like, bit with, the country band with, a horse named Bill. He would also, Arlo would also sing Sailing Down the Golden River. And then, like, there's another one which has no connection to any of the bits, is where Fozzie Bear, where he wants to do a little poem of stopping by woods on a snowy evening. And then suddenly, at the same time, Gonzo would come in interruptedly and try to do a flamenco dance with his chicken. So, like, basically it's a bit of a mix-up between Fozzie's poem and Gonzo's flamenco dancing, where, like, Kermit just ended up accidentally putting those two at the same time. Now, it is a great bit. That was actually hilarious, and it's not every day that you would get a really good moment with Fozzie Bear and Gonzo as a duo. Like, it works out very well, and probably one of the best moments of this episode. It's just that, what the fridge does it have to do with anything that's going on in here? It feels completely random, really, other than, like, a small moment at the beginning where Fozzie, like, is in the middle of backstage and he noticed there's, like, a whole bunch of cows. And that's pretty much it. But then there is one thing, like, that's not the only highlight of this episode. There's also a running bit of the Swedish Chef, and I guess they're trying to make that a bit of the story, where they want to go and try to prepare this big dinner, and Swedish Chef was the one in charge, so we pretty much got a consecutive series of Swedish Chef bits, where he was trying to go and try to cook a turkey, try to cook a cow, try to cook a pig, and all that kind of stuff. And it ended up falling flat on his face. And, you know, you do get a lot of great moments. So if there's any good that did come out of this episode, is that at the very least, we do get a lot of great Swedish Chef moments, and they actually do string well together. Now, they're not strong enough to go and create an entire story for an entire episode of The Muppet Show, but they're still great moments. So I would say that overall, this was an entirely weird and disorganized episode. I mean, just this very loose theme of a farmhouse where all the family just gets together and sing folk songs. Like, they're not really committed to it. It feels a little bit lazy in a way, where they're just throwing bits and pieces of, like, country and folk songs together and just call that an episode, because hopefully it will tie in that the special guest star, Arlo Guthrie, is kind of like the whole thing that attaches this whole bit together. which not necessarily. I mean, there are some good moments that did come out of it. All the moments with the Swedish Chef are fantastic, and I love the comedic duo bit of what we got with Fozzie Bear and Gonzo. That was a great moment, and there are a few highlights as well, like the square dance. But overall, like, other than those bits, it's just, there really isn't anything that's connecting well together. There's just musical bits and sketches that just happen out of the blue, and there just doesn't seem to be any order. All it is mostly a mix and match of a whole bunch of sketches and folk songs that really don't tie well together. It's just things that happen than really something that feels like a cohesive episode of The Muppet Show. So, honestly, this could be one of the weaker episodes I have seen, but still, like, it has some memorable moments, so it's not an entire loss that I've seen this episode. But anyways, that is pretty much it for this episode of The Muppet Show, so thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully next time we will see a lot more order onto the next episode that we got, but we will only know until next time, so see you later, dudes!